Welcome back to Expansive, and as you can see, it's another video, and this time we're taking a look at John Wick Hex. Now, if you like any of these videos that you've seen previously, do let us know in the comment section below and we can play even more of these. But these are kind of just some gameplay and impressions for each game as we go through. And man, I gotta say, this is the most unorthodox, unexpected pitch for a major licensed property perhaps ever. I mean, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall on this pitch when, Bithell Games had gone into Lionsgate and said, right, we want to take the biggest, most extraordinary action movie franchise of the moment and turn it into a strategy game. I mean, it's pretty incredible. But the crazy thing about it all is that I think it works so well. And in actual fact, I think it probably made me feel a bit more like John Wick than maybe if a first-person shooter, if I'd just been going around double-tapping people with guns and hand-to-hand combat in a first-person shooter, or if I've been an action adventure where I've just got some scripted cutscenes. You know, I can see those cutscenes in the films and, I can get that kind of action from those. But this is different. I feel like this kind of looks at the movements of John. It kind of looks at the strategies that are unfold. It's kind of like the way he kind of handles himself when he takes corners, the way he holds his gun, the way he reloads. And I think that really has kind of formed the basis of this game from a core level. As you can probably see from this cutscene, this is actually set before John Wick 1 and before his wife is killed. So this is kind of John, this is peak Hitman John, really. This is John before, he really kind of has that massive setback in his life. I think that's the key thing about this as well, is that they haven't tried to kind of retell further stories as we know in John from the movies. They've kind of tried to give us a bit of context as to how John is the way he is. And as it makes sense as well, because this game is really designed to be about strategy as a hitman. So as you can see, in like top-down view, this is probably not what anyone expected from a John Wick game. But honestly, I think this just works really great, and it's actually transferred really well to PlayStation 4 as well, which is where we're playing this. Obviously, it was a PC game, so it was using the mouse and keyboard, but the controller handles it just as well and effectively. So essentially, I guess the best way to describe John Wick Hex is kind of like it's the action is constantly being paused, and you have to take down all the enemies in each environment and then move on to the exit and move on to the next chapter. So you can see at the bottom there, you've got 3 sets of bars. You've got your magazine for your ammo, you've got your health bar, and you've got your focus bar. Now, each one is going to be crucial to your survival. So obviously ammunition is self-explanatory. You kind of like once you run out of bullets, you either have to reload or pick up another gun. The health bar, similar situation. Once you run out of health, you die, and John dies, and you have to restart the game. And the focus is slightly different because the focus is required for a lot of your main actions. One of the key ones is that John can actually crouch and he can roll around on the ground. So whenever John does that, he actually expends some focus. As you can see on kind of the action tree, you had to basically change your stance, and that allows John to kind of duck down. And when he's changed his stance, he can actually roll around on the ground. Now, what's just happening here is that John has snuck up on this enemy and he's taken him down. So what you can do basically by pressing square, you can open up X on that enemy. You can open up a series of options of things you can do to them. You can shoot them, you can take them down, strike them, parry their attacks, things like that. And as you can see, the core aim is to defeat every enemy you see and get to the exit. Now, the way you're watching John move around is kind of like it's like a hexagonal grid almost, but you're seeing John kind of like move at diagonal angles. He's not walking in a straight line, and that it weirdly is reminiscent of the movies in the sense of the way that John kind of holds himself and the way he strides around, and kind of it really kind of makes for a authentic experience in that regard, because it feels like you're playing as that character. As you can see around, I can move around the map quite freely and easily. There's an enemy that actually was, it took me a while to find this one, but the enemies that kind of like poke in the shadows there. So what I have to do, because there's such a range, and because he's got a gun, he can actually shoot me from there. So I have to be very careful about how I handle this situation. So I can either move myself into a bit of safety there. When he turned pink, that means I'm in range and that he's actually about ready to fire a shot. Now that he's white again, he's vulnerable, and I can take a shot, I can kill him off. Now that is kind of distinguished. I'll explain a little bit about the timeline at the top of the screen, which you're seeing kind of moving along, and that timeline basically determines the actions of both you and the opponent that you're up against. Now you see there I just picked up my gun because my ammo was a little bit low, so I've decided to change that. I'm actually going to pick this one back up again though because I quite like my custom handgun. But over time you are going to have to either find some magazines for your custom handgun, or you're going to have to pick up the enemies like automatics. You can get revolvers and things like that, so you can really mix up the weaponry in John Wick Hex. So as you say that the intros and the executions there, that basically shows you that pink bar that comes across. That's when an action is going to happen, whether that's from John, whether that's from another enemy. And when John has that kind of pink beam radiating out of him, that means he's been spotted or someone is in his eye line. So in this instance, I've decided to shoot an enemy that's just coming through that door, and that's an insta kill right there because I had 100% shot rate. I wasn't going to miss that. But in some circumstances, depending on how far away you are, you might actually have a lower rate of shooting. So in this case, my shot chance was a bit lower, but I still also managed to take him out. But I think in each circumstance, it may seem like the natural thing to just shoot, but you're going to run out of bullets very, very quickly. You're going to be in some close quarter situations as well at times. That's worth bearing in mind. And now watch this as well before I continue with that. So basically, when the end of each level, you can actually watch John Wick, your whole actions play out in sort of a cinematic style, which is really, really great. So I was wandering around aimlessly here, couldn't find my enemy. There he was. So then I could just fire him out. And it seems very slow when you're doing this in the game, but when it's all pieced together in a rapid frame by frame movement, it just comes together so well, and it really does make you feel like John Wick. And I think these sequences really sort of, for me personally, that's what really sells me on the game. But I think even watching John Wick Hex, you kind of don't really get the feel from it. You really do have to play the game to kind of understand and really get into it, I think. So this is the second level. You'll notice as well that each chapter is broken up into sections, and any sort of losses you had in the previous chapter will carry over to the next chapter. So that's another strategic layer you really do need to bear in mind. So in this instance, my custom handgun has lost some ammo. I didn't lose any health or focus in that situation, but so I'm going to have to be careful with reloading in that circumstance. But for instance, if I'm on death's door at the end of the last chapter, I'm going to be on death's door at the beginning of the next. So you really do have to be careful how you approach each section. So now you've seen the timelines really come into action at the top there. So I've just taken down that enemy, and then there's a small window between being shot and getting out of movement, and any movement. So basically I made the wrong choice there, so I didn't find a situation where I could take that first action. I was shot because I wasn't in proper defensive situation, so I've taken a bit of a hit on my health there. So where you basically have to try and find the best possible outcome to try and make sure that your action precedes the action of your enemy. So you've got this guy popping out the corner here. So I'm just looking at different options here. So shooting is going to take me a little while, but it's still going to be much faster than anything he could have pulled off in that circumstance because I was ambushing him. So I've got the heads up and I've got the kill. Same with the situation. So I'm looking through here. Shots again, preceding anything he did, and he goes down. My ammo is low now, so as you can see, I'm only down to 3 bullets. So I'm going to have to make the decision soon whether I choose to reload. I've actually got a spare magazine, so I can do that quite safely and comfortably, or whether or not I just pick a different weapon. So, and I've decided to reload, as you can see there, and I'm back to full clip. But that's my last magazine, so now I'm going to have to rely, hopefully, on other guns that I find within the game. And I think something I really like about Hex as well is the environment seems so suitably John Wick. I mean, the kind of the neon lighting, the kind of the types of vehicles you see around, the enemy types, and even John looks like Keanu Reeves. He looks fantastic, the way they've done it, but in this like kind of comic book style, which really seems appropriate in this universe, I think. But for me, I think one of the surprising things, actually this is a key one, that I'm just picking up a bandage here. So I press square and I've picked that bandage up. Now the bandages you're going to need to kind of like heal yourself, and again you're only going to have a small amount of those per each playthrough, and that's going to run through that entire level. So you really do have to be careful with your stocks and supplies as you go through each level, and as you go deeper into the game, that's going to become more and more prevalent. Of course, these are sort of more tutorial levels, so they kind of really only give you a flavour of what's going to come. So yeah, those opening shots there have taken down the enemy, but he's not quite finished yet, so now I'm going to have to be careful about how I move around. So I've kind of moved into his line of sight, And now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take him down and move him there. So when you take down an enemy, you can actually... Oh, actually, hang on. Let me just think about that a moment. Just looking for my options here. So I've got a basic 100% rate on everything I want to try here. I can do a bit of everything. But yeah, basically I was trying to determine from that situation whether there was anything I could do to stop that gunshot coming at me. There was nothing, so I had to kind of absorb that gunshot because there was nothing I could do that was going to help me in that circumstance. And so I absorbed the bullet, but I was still able to finish him off. And now I've just used a bandage. Now the key thing about using bandages is when you have to find a bit of time for respite. So if you don't find that time for respite, because you basically, if you get shot while you're bandaging, it's obviously you're immediately gonna lose some health. Or you're gonna even worse, I guess, is that the whole thing is the whole sequence is interrupted. So you really do need to find a safe place to bandage and also to refocus as well. So when your focus is completely depleted, you do need to find a good position to do that, and usually it's behind a car or behind a pillar, or when you've just got rid of a bunch of enemies, then it's probably a good time to do it. But the usual way to find if there's enemies are those sort of the pink beams that sort of come off from John as well. And also if you just bear in mind, you see some kind of like kind of white markers in the background in the shadowy areas. So that was a bit of a mess right there. But you can see John Wick can be, you can really struggle sometimes to know what's best, and sometimes you're going to find yourself in pickles that you really can't get out of without a bit of a scrap. There was one instance I remember while I was playing this was I actually got into a bare knuckle brawl with one guy in front of me, then I had to take down another, shoot another guy, and then still had to find time to strike. So it was a bit messy. I lost a bit of health, but when I came from that and when I actually saw the recreation of it, it looked so damn satisfying. It was incredible. I love these cinematic sequences. This weirdly makes the game in a way, because I think this shows you just exactly what you've done within that sequence. And I guess if you look at when you're playing those levels as being like a director of a John Wick film, so you're kind of directing those sequences, you're directing those movements, and each part of that timeline is a frame-by-frame movement. And then when you get to the exit, you see that finished film. So it's almost like creating your own John Wick film if you think of it in those sort of terms. And that for me works great, you know. I mean, I wouldn't make a great John Wick film with some of these movements and gestures, but you know, it gives you an example of the kind of things that you can be achieved within the game. So obviously Chinatown will be very reminiscent for those who ever watched the films, and that's where the first section takes place. So they go on the hunt for Edgar, and bear in mind what I said earlier on is that any sort of issues that you had that carried over from the last playthrough are now going to be prevalent in this one. And there are also different enemy types. So this level is going to introduce you to a brawler. Now the brawler doesn't have a gun, so what you're going to have to do with a brawler is actually either decide to take a shot from a range when they're coming towards you, because what they'll do, they'll bear down on your position, and once they're in that position with you, they'll start striking you and they'll deal some very heavy damage. Or you could even decide to have a bare knuckle brawl with that person if you want to and save your ammunition. And it's always a kind of a case of weighing that up, because sometimes also shooting your gun can also alert other enemies to your position, which can be very dangerous to you as well, because some levels have got a lot of enemies, and you know, obviously if you've got head-on collisions all the way around you rather than be able to kind of have that element of ambush, it can be really, really fatal to you. So you can see now we're going to do a bit of crouching to kind of really show you how effective that can be. So I've changed my stance. John is now ducked, and rather than walking now, John rolls around, and this expends focus. So that's going to be a crucial thing. But when John is kneeling down, he can actually then, he's got a better vantage of his gun. He's a lot harder to kill and a lot harder to hit, because obviously he's got a smaller frame. But I'm really going to have to be careful here because I've only got 2 bullets in my custom handgun, so I'm going to have to really weigh up what's going to work here, and I've got multiple enemies to deal with. So I'm just looking at the timeline here. I think I'm going to roll out of way out. It's probably going to be the smart move, but I'm still in the eye line of that that shooter from the distance. And meanwhile, the brawler is coming in on me. Oof. So yeah, I've got no bullets now, so I'm either going to have to, play this smart, I think. Now the other thing you can do is wait as well, so you don't necessarily have to move. If you feel like you're in a good position already, you don't have to move if you don't want to. And actually that can be a very effective strategy in some circumstances. So I'm going to have to make a run for that gun there. Not quite on it. Let me run and walk again. So you've got to be right on top of it, and then you press square to pick it up. So now I'm right in the eye line again, so I'm going to have to change my stance. Roll in there. Right now I think I've got a good shot on this guy. 100% shot rate. Bang, bang. Oh! Not quite sure if he's gone, but then look on my right hand side, I've got another enemy coming at me. 70% shot percentage there. Oh, they're down. See, that worked really well. Never in doubt. Yeah. But now I'm completely out of focus, so now I'm going to have to at some point recharge that. My bullets are already looking pretty low, but I've reduced my focus there. Oh, another enemy. He's got a gun on me, so he's really in position. And yeah, he's going to get the first shot on me unless I move very quickly. Oh, look at that. Right behind that car. Working really, really well. So change the stance again. So it's all about changing stances, as I said, because you can make yourself a harder target, and the rolling is so effective and so important in this game, because it allows you to cover more distance than normal walking. So I've ducked behind the car there as well. So if you notice then as well, I was actually in his island, but because I ducked behind the car, I was no longer in shot, so he had to move his position. And it's all about making your enemies change position as well. So yeah, you've really got to play that timeline, but you've also got to play around with the different stances to make it yourself a very effective hitman. Which I think this is where the game's strength really starts to come into play, when you really start to experiment with the stances and you experiment with the different enemy types. So, oh, I have to be careful again. Barely get into that room. They're all swarming me. So, yeah, I'm out of bullets again. I'm going to have to get another weapon, I think. Not looking too good. But these are the pressure situations I was telling you about. So, I mean, obviously, I've walked right into that. Not clever. These are the pressure situations I was sort of telling you about, in the sense that, you really have to, it's not going to be pretty sometimes. Sometimes you are really going to have to get down and dirty to kind of make your way through to the end of the level. So, this is not going to look very good. Oh, really getting pummeled in this one. It's not going to look good from a director's point of view. But there we go, he's down. Okay. Oh, another one. Crikey, they're just not letting up, are they? Okay, so change stance again. I've got no weapon. What am I doing? Okay. So I'm now going to have to try and pick up another automatic. Okay, I got some ammunition there. So I've just rolled out of the way from his strikes. Bang, bang. Lovely double tap there. Whew. This is where I think John Wick Hex really sort of starts to come into its own a little bit. And you've noticed as well, when I'm stood up compared to when I'm crouching down, my field of view is wider, so I can see more when I'm stood up. So sometimes that's why you'll see me change stance quite regularly, because sometimes I can't see everything when I'm ducked down for obvious reasons, because you're hiding, your eye line's hidden behind some cover or whatever. So okay, change stance. Oh, health is low. I'm definitely going to need some bandages here. This is going to be tight. Am I going to be able to? Okay, so I'll roll over there. Not quite in position. I'm just gonna have to do a bit of rolling, I think. As Limp Bizkit would say, keep rolling. Okay. So I've found an angle here. Bang, bang. Nice. Okay. I have to change stance now to bandage, and hopefully, it's gonna be tight. Nah, they got me. Focus is low. I am down and done. But that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the channel for even more content, and say if you want us to play more John Wick Hex, do let us know in the comment section. See you next time.